In this video, we're going to be covering our hips 90-90 stretch for our hip capsules, specifically for hip external rotation as well as hip internal rotation. So, for the setup of this stretch, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start off by setting up our 90-90 on the floor. So what we want to do here is we want to try and maintain a nice upright torso as much as allowable. Now this is going to vary based on your starting point. You might be able to sit up nice and tall, or you might find you have to slightly lean away. That is fine for now. There will be some other modifications we can go over. But for now, think about trying to maintain that nice, tall, upright torso, keeping your lower back curved, thinking about tilting that pelvis forward and trying to pull your butt back behind you. Now, our lead leg is we're going to try and have that thigh directly out in front of our chest, and we're going to create a 90-degree bend at the front of that knee and a 90-degree bend at our ankle. For a trail leg, we want this thigh to be parallel with this leg in front of us here. We want that thigh directly coming out of the side of the pelvis there, creating a 90-degree bend at the knee and another 90-degree bend at the ankle. Now, when we're going to be working on your lead leg, we'll be focusing on external rotation. When we're going to be working on your trail leg, we're going to be focusing on expanding range of motion for internal rotation of the hip. So, to start off with the external rotation hip or lead leg, what we're going to do is we're going to start off sitting up nice and tall. We're going to make sure hips and pelvis are planted on the ground there. We're going to try and curve that lower back, thinking about trying to tilt this pelvis forward, feeling like your butt wants to slide back behind you. We're going to, keep our chest up nice and tall. Now, to get into our stretch position, while pulling your butt back, creating that tilt, we're going to slowly pull that chest forward, making sure not to just collapse and round that upper back, but rather keeping it nice and tall, keeping the lower back curved, and pulling that chest forward slowly until you start to feel a stretch underneath the bottom of this leg in towards that glute somewhere around the thigh as well. Now, once you find your stretch, and sometimes you might not get it right away, but that's okay. So what you can do is just start off in a position not too far forward. We're going to hang out here in a passive stretch for a duration of 1 to 2 minutes, starting off with 1-minute stretches, and over time working that up towards 2-minute passive stretches. Now, following that 1 to 2 minute stretch, we're going to start our first PAILs contraction. For that PAILs contraction, we're going to begin by taking a deep breath in, followed with a long exhale. On that exhale, we're going to start by contracting or taking up our core, and then think about spreading that contraction through the rest of the body. So once I have that core tight, I'm going to think about pushing my hands into the ground, tightening up my forearms, my shoulders, and my chest, squeezing the glutes as hard as I can, and just thinking about gradually raising that tension from a 0% up towards your safest maximum effort. This will take about 5 or 10 seconds, and following which you're now going to begin your first PAILs contraction. The PAILs contraction is going to involve thinking about just pushing that lead leg down into the floor as hard as you can while maintaining a strong squeeze around the muscles in the hip. So think about pushing that leg into the floor, and if anyone tried to lift that up off the ground, they should not be able to. After about 10 seconds of that, what we're going to do is try and create a contraction in the opposite direction. We're going to start to contract the top of the thigh and think about trying to pull that up and close the gap between your thigh and your abdomen. Now, your leg won't necessarily lift off, but if you squeeze hard enough, what you might feel is this ankle and heel wanting to rise up towards that ceiling. So we're going to continue to try and pull for 10 seconds as hard as we can while slowly trying to pull that chest a little bit further forward into our stretch. And then we're going to relax and bring that tension back down to 0%. We're going to take 20 to 30 seconds to just hang out in this newly acquired range of motion. Then we're going to begin another round of PAILs and rails, following the same steps as before. Taking a deep breath in, exhaling, creating tension towards your safest maximum effort. Creating a 10-second push down into the ground with that lead leg. 10-second pull in which we try to pull that chest a little bit further forward, and then we can relax here. Now, to work on internal rotation or a trail leg, we're going to follow a very similar principle, but now we're going to start off again with our chest up nice and tall, shoulders back, with a slight curve in that lower back. From here, we're going to slowly start to twist our torso, thinking about keeping this hip planted, creating a stretch through this region of the hip here, trying to rotate and trying to get that shoulder in line with that back ankle. Once we are there, we're going to try to slowly bend that shoulder and bend our spine towards that back ankle here, during which now we're going to be in our initial passive stretch position. We're going to maintain this position for the next 1 to 2 minutes, following which we're going to begin our first PAILs contraction. So again, think about taking a deep breath in, exhaling, and creating your safest maximum effort contraction. Once we've created that contraction, we're going to start by pushing and squeezing this leg into that ground as hard as you can. Again, think about if I tried to lift this off the floor, I would not be able to. Following the 10-second PAILs contraction, we're going to start a rails contraction, in which we're now going to think about squeezing and pulling all of this here towards us while trying to squeeze hard enough that maybe that back heel is going to start to lift off the ground. So we're going to try and get further into internal rotation by trying to squeeze all of this, pull that heel up to the ceiling, and slowly try to bend our shoulder further toward that region for about 10 seconds. Then we relax, bring that tension back down to 0%, and then try to see maybe you'll feel a little bit easier to sit upright and bring that shoulder a little bit closer towards that back heel. Now, after 20-30 seconds rest, you can repeat the whole PAILs and rails contraction again for another round or two.